We tend to think of the spaces where we sleep as our own, whether we paid for that space for a night, a week, a year, a lifetime, or beyond. But what if someone else also thinks that space is theirs to inhabit? Can two entities on either side of life occupy the same dwelling at the same time and still get along? Or would there be anger, dread, fear, and a sense that someone or something needs to get out? Today on Homespun Haints, we'll talk to Jennifer, who had to face this very unnerving predicament twice. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Homespun Haints. I'm Becky.
And I'm Diana.
And on the show today, we have Jennifer.
Becky's neighbor, right?
Yes.
I think that's important to say because, you're drawn the parallel between where you grew up, where you chose to spend your young adult life, and where you've chosen to spend, you're still a young adult, so your other young adult life.
I'm not. Well, thank you. Oh, I see Jennifer just joined us.
Oh, hi, Jennifer.
Do you have your video on?
No, I have a sticker over it. Hold on, I'll open it.
Oh, we would love to see you.
That's awfully stuck. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, my husband actually got one of these security webcam covers from work.
That's a good idea.
Like the thing. You can.
It's better than the BB-8 Band-Aid.
No.
Band-Aids work well because they don't have sticky, and you could put that part right over the.
Right? I love it.
Brilliant.
Actually, that's brilliant.
And kids' Band-Aids don't usually stick very well, although these Star Wars ones are kind of strong.
Yeah, the force is strong with them. First of all, Jennifer, if you don't mind, I'd like to have you give a little backstory about yourself, where you're from, all the cool places you have lived, because you've done quite a bit of state hopping yourself.
Yeah, I've lived a couple places, yeah.
Well, I thought it was cool when I first met you to learn that we both grew up not too far from each other, and then we both ran away to Chicago.
Yeah, I know. It was really cool. And then are both right here in the same neighborhood.
Yeah, very bizarre. Yeah. So tell us where exactly, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how that sort of led you to Murfreesboro, which I know is where you're going to talk about.
Sure. Okay, so I was born in Nashville, and when I was very small, my parents built a house in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. I grew up on just a country road. There were houses, we had a few acres. There were horses beside of us. It was a little isolated for a kid. There were no sidewalks. It was just a street in front of us, and if you got out in it, you were likely to meet your end.
Very Pet Cemetery.
Yes. Yeah, exactly like that. So there was a little old country church across the street from us, and we didn't go there. We didn't go to church, but I would, as a kid, sort of frequent it and kind of just go across the street and show up because they would always have homemade pie. They knew me. I would just kind of show up and eat desserts.
That is a valid reason to go to church.
It is, right? Yeah. The town itself, Mount Juliet, was named after mint julep, the drink, because it was just a stop on the road between Nashville and Lebanon. And so there was an inn there, and people could stay, and there were famous, they served the mint julep, very southern drink.
I love it.
I know. So the whole town is named after a drink, which is very fitting. I mean, that works for me.
That is southern.
Yes,
Nice.
it's very southern, isn't it? So that is where I'm from, small town outside of Nashville. And Murfreesboro is actually not too far. Murfreesboro is just down the road from where I grew up, but it's known to be haunted. There's Civil War battlefields all around the town, and they do the reenactments there. From what I've heard from multiple people, it's a hotbed for ghost activity.
So you sent us a story about this. You said the second scariest experience you've ever had with a ghost, and we'd like to insert the story that you've already recorded, and then we can ask you some questions about it. How does that sound?
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great. We lived in apartments in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It is the first time I had moved out of the house, the first time I had really lived in a different place, the first time I had encountered a ghost. They were just normal apartments. They were nice. We lived on kind of the back side of the apartment building on the ground floor. There was a nice big open area beside of us, woods right behind us, and a big open field behind that. So we had a lot of nice open area. Inside the apartment was kind of small. There was a open living room and dining room with a small kitchen to the side. And off of the living room was a long hallway. And down at the end of the hallway was a master bedroom. And in the middle of the hall was a door with a bedroom. That's the bedroom I was staying in. I lived there for quite a while. I had lived there for several months before this happened. And it was really, just so sort of sudden and unexpected. It was just a normal day. I was getting ready to go out to dinner, and I was in the bedroom, and I was going across the hall to the bathroom to put some makeup on. As I come out of the bedroom, when I see something in the doorway, in the end of the hall, right in the doorway, there was a figure, and it was head to toe like a person, but dark gray, but also transparent, like you would think of a ghost. It wasn't solid, but it was a definite form and person. There was a woman standing there. She wasn't just standing, she was moving as if she was walking through the doorway. Maybe that there was a different structure there before. But as she walked through, she turned around and looked at me. And I, of course, just jumped out of my skin. I just froze. And you could feel the anger. You could feel, it wasn't a good feeling. Whatever this ghost was doing there was painful and just full of hate and mad. But it looked at me like, get out, or get away. It blew my mind. I had never experienced anything like that. Previously, if someone had told me they'd seen a ghost, I'd say, okay, whatever. I'm sure there's some explanation or who knows. But standing there, seeing this, not knowing what to do, all I could do was just, run. Just fight or flight, right? What do you do when you see a ghost? And I ran. So I ran the opposite way down the hall and into the kitchen where my roommate was in the kitchen. And I was just beside myself. Oh my gosh, there was a ghost. And my roommate, it was my boyfriend at the time, was like, oh, whoa, was it a woman? I saw her too. And just that, he gave me a hug and he was like, you're okay. I can't believe that you saw that. And he described to me, so it was a woman and she was like mad. And yes, that is exactly what I saw. And just that validation, he saw it and he was like, he was glad that I saw it because it validated what he saw, what he experienced. And I asked him, why didn't you tell me before? We're living here and you saw this thing. And he said he almost just couldn't believe himself that he had never seen a ghost before either, and that it's something that that happened and it scared him, but he just felt like maybe it wouldn't happen again, or he just didn't know what to do about it. He didn't know what to do with it. He didn't think anybody would believe him. That we both saw it. There was that validation, and that we both saw the same thing and felt the same thing. He described to me what he saw, which was this figure in the door, that same kind of dark gray, and the feeling of just being really mad. And that is exactly the same thing that I saw.
So you're in Murfreesboro. You have just seen this lady at the end of the hallway, and you go running to your boyfriend, who's also your roommate. We've all done that.
that part of the story was kind of short, but told him that you'd seen something, and
Uh-huh.
then he immediately knew what you saw.
Yes.
That's creepy.
Yes. I don't know in the ghost land how much that happens, just like two people that know each other maybe get to like, yes, we saw that thing.
That can't have been what you were expecting when you ran out to say, oh my gosh, I saw a ghost. You're probably expecting like, it's okay, let's go check it out.
I
Or
didn't have time to expect anything. Like I
okay.
was just sheer adrenaline at that point. I think later we were probably like, whoa, what's going on? But at that point, it was no question. This is crazy.
So how long had your boyfriend lived in the apartment before you moved in? He was there before you, correct?
Yeah, he lived there before me, but it wasn't for very long.
Okay.
It would have been about 6 months before me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And had he seen this lady more than once, or?
No, he had not seen her more than once. He had seen her that one time, which was just before I saw her.
Oh.
So it was just a
Oh.
few days before I saw her. Like it had just
Okay.
happened. And I wasn't there when it happened. He didn't tell me about it. He just said that he was scared. It really scared him, but he said he didn't know. He thought it maybe would never happen again. He was just kind of like, I saw something, and I saw, maybe it was just passing by, and I didn't want to scare you. I think he thought I would not stay there.
I wouldn't.
Reasonable.
I mean, it's one thing if it's a memory, like, but friggin' angry, nasty, get out of my apartment kind of ghost.
Right. Now it's okay. We've both seen this thing. What do we do?
So what did you do?
My boyfriend knew some hippie people, kids, and one of them was into the sort of supernatural. He knew her. He had gone to school with her for a long time. He was like, I think maybe we should talk to this friend of mine. It was my friend of mine in high school, and she said, okay, yeah, let me come over. I'll come over. She drove from Nashville. It's 45-minute drive. She went through our house and just sort of cleared the house, opened the windows, walked through. She had her sage, and she was sort of, just saying positive things, and left and said we should be okay, that she's felt like that whatever was there is not coming back. And it felt good. It felt like, okay. But I was always still, very nervous just from having been so scared. It's one of those, you're anytime I would leave the room or walk down the hallway, I'm just looking over my shoulder and, a little like apprehensive. But after a while, I became more comfortable, and nothing happened while we were there. So.
Oh, good.
To our audience out there, sage is amazing.
Apparently
When wielded by the right hippie. Yes.
Yeah, she knew what she was doing. She must have been super in tune.
How long after you saw the ghost did you get this person in the apartment, and were you cool with staying there while you were waiting for her, or did you go somewhere else?
No, we stayed there.
Okay.
We stayed there, and it was just like that weekend. It was a couple days
Oh, okay.
later. And it did make a difference. I did feel, better after she did that. It did feel more comfortable in the house after she was there. But I was still, of course, still freaked out. So.
Yeah. And I'm curious, you said it was the room at the end of the hall, but what room was it? Was it like a guest room, or?
That was my boyfriend's son's room.
Oh.
He was like 2 years old then. So we did move him out of that bedroom and into our bedroom.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah, he had a little car bed.
Oh yeah.
So it was so small. So we moved it out of the bedroom and we put it in our bedroom. So after that, no one stayed in that bedroom.
Gotcha. No, I can't blame you. Did he ever, did your 2-year-old ever say anything or express any fears, or?
No, he never said anything. So
Good.
yeah. Yeah, he didn't stay there all the time, but when he did stay there, he never saw anything. So.
Good.
Yes, I know that would have been like moving out quickly material right there. So
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
yeah. Oh, and I think now that I'm older, I would probably move out. Yeah, I was 19, I was like, okay, I can handle this, whatever, still I can live through anything. Right, nothing's going to hurt me, probably. So I think that had a lot to do with why I stayed. I don't think now that I would have somebody again come over, and I'd have to be for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Do several treatments.
Yeah, that it's just not a dangerous situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you spoke to other people about Murfreesboro while you were there, and that it is sort of this hotbed of paranormal activity,
Mm-hmm.
which I've been to Murfreesboro. I was there for a month for orchestra camp because
Oh,
I was living in the dorm. I think the most interesting thing that happened was my roommate ripped out an earring with a hairbrush.
cool.
That's not paranormal, but that's definitely frightening. Yikes.
We like all the scares on this show, but yeah. So you lived there for, it sounds like, a couple years, maybe. You had a chance to talk to people. You said there was a Civil War battleground near there,
Mm-hmm.
which is always sort of this, I don't know, almost cesspool of paranormal activity. There's so much whenever there's all that
Yeah,
death.
that is really true. And I guess, I mean, if you just think about the brutality and the fear that that must go along with that on the ground, I can only imagine the pain that must be
Right.
at these places. I'm sure there is activity around these sites that just must be really painful, kind of like this woman that I saw. She just seemed so mad, but I couldn't, put a time period on her. I couldn't place clothes or
Mm.
anything like that. So it's not that I can say this was, oh, definitely from a certain era. It was just more like a wispy, dark cloud
Mm.
than you would see like clothes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I don't know when it was from, but I do link that feeling of just frustration and anger and helplessness to that same same idea of what it must have been like around, the Civil War, these battles.
And now we live in Roswell, which is also a site of much trauma from that time period. So,
Right.
yeah, lots of fun stuff here. So, you said in your story that it was the second most terrifying encounter that you
Yeah.
have had with a ghost. Would you like to share with us what you consider to be the most terrifying encounter?
Yeah. Well, I think that definitely the most terrifying was the time that I stayed at a hostel in San Diego. And I didn't know this place was haunted. Apparently, like, it's a known thing that this place is haunted now that there's the internet. At that time, I wasn't on the internet very much because this was, let's see, the early 2000s.
Oh, yeah, you had to like get on the modem, disrupt your phone line.
Yeah, it was a thing, and there just wasn't the information out there that there is now. You could search for things and maybe find an article or something, but now that there's so much information, but it's like, oh yeah, people go there to try to see ghosts. It's like, oh great, okay, well I was just staying there because we were poor and I wanted to go to San Diego. Okay, so we go in, and I had actually called and reserved a room for us before we got there. So we went, and they had one of the very few double beds in the place. Most of it are bunk beds or singles. We went in, and they were like, "Oh yeah, here's your room. Go down the hall. Here's where it is." They gave us the keys, and we went and opened the door. And the window had been open, I guess, to air the room out, which is fine. It's great, but there was no screen on the window, and the room was just full of flies. Full. It was gross. Like I was like, I can't deal with this. It's too much. Like there was just flies everywhere. And my boyfriend who I was with was like, oh, we can just, shoo them out or whatever. I'm like, it's just crazy. It's full. The bed is covered. It's like full of flies in here.
Oh,
Gross. So I was like, no, I'm sorry. I'm not the kind of person to send back food or complain or, so it's hard, but I was like, I can't deal. So we went back to the front desk and I was like, I'm sorry, somebody left the window open. There's no screen. It's just totally full of flies in there. Do you have another room? They were like, yeah, we have another room, but it's bunk beds. I was like, that's fine. Fine. It doesn't matter. That's fine. Okay. So we get the other room and we put our stuff in, we lock it up, we go out for the day, and we're staying in the gas lamp district, which I guess in San Diego is like the old town. So it's like the old area of town. We have a good time, go out. When we come back, we just go to bed, and I'm laying on the bottom bunk and my boyfriend gets up on the top bunk, and I start to go to sleep and felt something just rush up beside me, just rush right up. And it felt like a little boy standing there in my face, just whoosh. I was like, it was just right in my face. It was so scary, so scary. And I just like backed up from the bed into the corner of the wall. And I just felt like this thing was just kind of like like a little boy wanting to play or something. It was so weird that it felt small, but you could tell it was like short, right? You just felt like a little kid. I couldn't shake it. And this was like a rickety, cheapo bunk bed. I climb up this bunk bed. It's shaking. My boyfriend's in the top. He's not small. These are like little single bed bunk beds. And I'm shoving myself in the bunk bed with him. There's something over there. Oh my God, there's a ghost. And he's like, calm down. This whole bed is like shaking. He's just like, calm down, it's okay. And I'm like, no way, I'm going back down there. No, like you can go down there and sleep, or we can sleep up here, but I am not going back down there. He stayed up there. I was like, just stay up here. So we just crammed into this single bed and slept, or I didn't sleep. I laid there most of the night, just horrified, kind of peeking over and just scared. I was just scared. And we were supposed to stay there for 3 nights and I couldn't. I was like, I'm sorry, I have a credit card. This is what it's for. It's for emergency purposes. So I went to a hotel. We stayed in a hotel for the next 2 nights.
Real hotel without ghosts.
Yes, luckily this one did not seem to have ghosts. It was like a Holiday Inn.
Wow. So unintentional ghost hunting at the hostel.
Yeah. Woo.
Ooh.
So you later found out that this place is on a list for one of the top 10 or 15 most haunted hotels in the U.S.
Yes.
Oh.
How long after your experience here did you discover that?
Much later. It wasn't until probably a few years ago I had told somebody, and I looked it up and I was like, oh my gosh, look at this. Well, look at online.
Look at the way time changes things, because nowadays the answer would be like, 5 minutes before we left, because I looked it up on my phone and there it was on the list of top haunted places.
Yeah, like why didn't you look this up before we came, right? Somebody would have been blamed.
It's just so much easier to find the list nowadays.
I might go back now. I think if I was prepared, knowing, revisit.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, but just not knowing and being there.
I know you sent me the name of this hotel, so I'll make sure to include that on the show notes for this episode, and as well as a link to the page that talks about this particular hotel and how haunted it is, and ranks with some others in the country.
Yeah, because this is our first episode with a hotel where it's admittedly haunted and people can go check it out for the hauntings. So that's kind of exciting to me, because someday we might go and have an investigation there or something.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Well, we'll make sure to let you know if we do that.
We'll bring Sage.
So you'll ruin their tourism.
He's so angry.
I know, right? What are you guys doing?
Nothing.
Just protecting our room, right? Why would you do that? Why go?
Yeah, exactly. Well, those are both super, super creepy stories. I really, really appreciate you sharing with us.
Yeah. Yeah, good. I'm so glad you're doing this. It's fun. It's fun to put these stories out there to share them, and maybe somebody else has had that same experience in those places, which would be interesting.
I'm sure there's somebody out there who can probably relate something similar, maybe even explain who the little boy was.
That would be
Maybe,
cool.
right? Ooh.
If you're out there,
Mm-hmm.
please let us know.
Definitely. That's exciting. Well, those are both good stories. I like those stories.
Thank you.
I hope that somebody comes up with more stories from that hotel and shares them with us, just so we can corroborate a little bit and see what might be going on there. Probably nobody will show up with stories about your apartment. That would just be creepy, but
But maybe Murfreesboro.
maybe Murfreesboro.
Yeah, absolutely. Murfreesboro. Again, thank you so much for joining us, Jennifer. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you getting on and sharing your stories. I know it could be a little nerve-wracking maybe to get up and talk about this stuff, but I really appreciate it. We really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you. Thank you so much for thinking of me and thinking that my stories were interesting enough to put on.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
Next time we're going to be interviewing.
Well, actually, I don't know what our next guest is going to talk about. I can't tell you what story she's going to tell because she has so many.
But you were talking about wandering around the cemetery with her just recently.
Oh,
Yes.
yes,
So
yes. So
this is your cemetery buddy.
yes, this is my cemetery buddy. So the backstory is the Roswell Ghost Tour, which Diana and I have been on, hands down, best ghost tour I've ever been on,
Oh, good.
and I've
That's
been on a lot. On the Roswell Ghost Tour's website, they have this picture they like to tell you about in the Founders Cemetery in historic Roswell. They take groups there at night. It's legal, I hope, to go into the cemetery at night. It's a very, very, very creepy cemetery where the founders of Roswell and Dunwoody and some of the other towns around here are buried. They go into the cemetery at night and they talk about things that have been heard there and seen there, which is interesting because when I grew up, I was taught, I was taught that ghosts don't hang out in cemeteries.
uh,
Mm.
I don't know if anybody else has ever heard that, but that was a lesson that was taught, maybe in my school for all I know. And so it's kind of interesting that this particular cemetery is supposedly quite haunted. Well, on the Ghost Tours website, they have a picture that somebody took on the tour, and there's a man standing in the photo who wasn't on the tour. This is public. You can go look at it on the website. And I was telling another friend about this photo, and she said, "Oh, that's funny. I went on that same tour and I took a photo, and there's somebody in my photo too." And I begged her to find it for me. She did. And she pulled up the photo, and it was the same man.
what?
Yes, he's super creepy. He has a beard and he has an eye patch.
Whoa, I literally just pulled that up. And yeah, he does have a creepy beard.
Eye patch.
Eye patch.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's on the website. We can put a link to the website under the video here so you can go look at it.
Wow.
But oh
Yes,
my
and
gosh.
I will also include the photo from my friend. She sent it to me, so you can see them. So
Yeah.
Ooh.
I have been, of course, going to the cemetery on a almost, I would say, weekly basis, trying to get a photo of this fellow.
Mhm.
But I've been going during the day, and apparently, like pinworms, he only comes out at night. So this person that will be on the episode next week, she was in town last week, and I was telling her this story, and she said, "Well, let's go there. Let's go to the cemetery tonight." And I said, "Sure. What the hell? Let's go to a haunted cemetery at night, just the two of us. Try to take a photo of a ghost." We didn't catch anything. We were there maybe about 20 minutes. There's sort of like this little section. It's got a little, I don't know, almost a little wall around it, like just maybe a few inches tall. A couple plots together that are kept together there, and some pretty flowers that have grown up on their own accord around there. And I ventured back into this little section to take some photos, and I turned to this other person who was with me, and I said, come on back with me." And I walked forward and I realized she wasn't following me. Something stopped her. She
Ugh.
she said she just kind of got this feeling like, don't go in there. But me, I'm a little less sensitive, I guess. I was like, I walk in, I snap some photos, and then I got this feeling that something was watching me. It was so strong, and granted, it could have been in my head. I was pretty freaked out, and I thought this thing in my head. I thought, if I turn around and take a photo behind me with my phone, I will catch something.
Did
And
you?
I couldn't bring myself to do it. I was so sure
no.
that I just like zoomed out of there. But then once I was back in the sort of main entrance of the cemetery, I felt fine. We started talking about all the unmarked graves that were in the cemetery. And midway through what I was saying, she cut me off and she said, I feel something on the back of my neck. And I said, are we going now? And as the words are out of my mouth, I'm zooming down the steps into the car. Like I didn't even wait for her. She goes running after me. She jumps up beside me. We just kind of peeled away like two teenagers.
Oh, wow. That's a good experience. Yeah. And it's right down the street, so you can go back whenever you feel like.
Yeah, what are you guys doing tonight? Let's go catch a ghost. That's next week's guest.
Very exciting. All right. Well, cool. Thank you, Jennifer. Good to meet you.
Thank you. It was so nice to meet you too.
Anybody who lives in San Diego and wants to go check out that hostel, check out the link to the hostel below. See if you want to maybe try and get a little photo action going on there sometime at night.
Thank you so much. That's our show. Thanks for listening. Please make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already, and check us out on the website. Be sure to check out our Facebook group, our Facebook page, and follow us on Instagram. And if you snap a great photo or have some interesting insights that you wish to share on Instagram, be sure to use the tag Homespun Haints so we will find it and we can share it accordingly.
Yes, well, that was Homespun Haints. Until next time, have a spooky day.